Hey everyone, today I learned about a new site called CSS Battle and I wanted to give it a try and I'm going to teach you how to do CSS. I was watching somebody else's video and he was doing CSS Battle against some other people on YouTube. A friend referred to me to some channel and I saw some CSS Battle thing and I thought this is really cool, but they're not describing anything that they're doing in the video. Let's try this one. And this is what it looks like. I want to tell you how we're going to build this. See what these are, right? These look like circles with the height and width not equal to each other. This looks like a square. Actually, this could be a square here with a thick border on it. But something like this could just be a div, that's in a square shape, and then another div in a square shape. But it could also be a div with like two borders on it. The thing is, if you remove a border, as far as I know, let's try it real quick here. So we take this square, they gave us a square. Let's say we add a border to it and we remove one of the borders. So border, let's say 8 pixels solid red. No, black. Yeah, okay, black is fine. And then we take the border left. Hang on, can I do BDL? No, okay. Border left, and we get rid of it. Or border right, let's do that. Well, let's just zero it out. Okay, so it does cut it cleanly. It does cut it cleanly, which means that we can do this. We can do this with a square and then just cut the border off. And we could do it here, but this is like 2 squares, right? Or it could be a square with a border and a taller square with a border z-index behind it. I mean, this did say something about z-index on it, so we could try this. I don't know why the z-index matters, but what I do want to do is I want to create all these notes. And these circles have to go last in the HTML. And the reason they have to go last in the HTML is so they appear on top of any black squares or anything we're doing. This seems really easy to make. I could just make this with a bunch of divs, but I'd rather make it with squares to save some time. Okay, so let's start here. So they gave us a square, but I don't know if the colors are correct. No, the color is not correct. And this node is a darker color. So let's start with these circles. Let's like make a class that builds these circles. Do we need to change the background? Yeah, we do also need to change the background color, so let's do that. So we get the body, and we'll just do, so we have a div. We're gonna need 1 div per circle. So we're gonna need at least 4 divs, and it's gonna be circle. I'm surprised I didn't write class name there. If you guys know React, you would know why that was troublesome for me. So I would never name the circle normally. I would maybe name it music notes. This is the stem, and this would be like music note. I don't know what this is called. Circle? But we're just gonna name it circle for now. No, we should name it correctly. Music note circle. Now, the caps and stuff aren't used by CSS. It doesn't care, but I like it because I like this syntax. Camel case, they call it, I believe. Okay, so we need 4 of those, and the music note circle is going to be a circle, but not a 100% circle. So like border radius at 50% will give us a circle. If we give it a height and width, and we need to place it somewhere, right? So I don't know if the position matters. I mean, I'd rather just do position absolute, and then and we need to like place it somewhere, right? Can we just do one of these? Top 50 pixels, left 50 pixels. Now you're noticing it's white, and I'm typing all this stuff. It doesn't exist yet. This element, I got to give it a background color. Let's do that, and we'll give it that background color. I need to give it a height and width. Width is, let's say, 60 pixels. And the height, let's make it 40 pixels. Okay, so we've got something showing up right now. Now, their stuff is really... I'm zoomed in. I don't know if I want to be zoomed in then. Because if I'm zoomed in, the problem is like... So the problem is if I'm not zoomed in, you might not be able to see it. But also, this is much sharper, but because it's an image. But if I zoom in, you're going to notice that it's feathered. It's soft on the outside. So I got this like little circle, right? And we want to make 4 of them. And this top and left is just so I could place it somewhere so I can see it. I mean, I really want to know how... It needs to be less wide, and it needs to be that little bit less wide. Nope. Okay, that's close. I think that's it. There's your height and whatever. It'll be shared among all of them. And then we need to place it down. So if this is top at 50 pixels, then I want to move it all the way down here. That needs to be about 150 pixels. A little bit more. And then on the left, it doesn't matter. These are going to be, I'm going to target each div individually. So we could do like dot music note circle, nth child 1. And that's how you can target the first child. And I don't know if this is all like good CSS. I would never do it like this, but I mean, it's self-contained, right? We're self-containing it. Typically, each of these would have its own class, and I would like change the properties of the class. I don't want to do it here because we don't need to. So I could use top and left. I could use other things to target it. I'm using position absolute so that I can do that. And typically when I'm writing CSS, I also alphabetize it. I don't have my key commands here to automatically alphabetize for me, so it's actually kind of annoying to do it. So I move this, and then we want to see that needs to be lower, so 170 maybe, 180, and then I need to move it over about the width, so about 50 pixels more. So this is 100, and then this is maybe 170. I'm kind of wondering why it's not moving to the left. Oh, maybe that. Well, now I moved it too far. I was fine with 50 then. It's not right. So we do 60. You know, the size is wrong. It's a little small. And that might be because it's an image. So if I just shrink it real quick, I want to see. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I don't know if zooming is cheating. It does help me see it. So, yeah, the feathering is throwing me off, but it needs to be a little wider. It definitely needs to be a little wider, and it's actually too far off to the right. So the left is wrong. This needs to be maybe like 58 pixels. And then it needs to be wider, I said. Yeah, it's just so hard to do. Because it's feathered, it's actually really hard to compare. I wish this image was a lot higher resolution. It says 400 by 300. This is very small. I could barely see it in the video I was watching. Okay, so we need to make it a little bit wider. And that's probably too wide. It says 52. It can't be that much different. And then we need to move it to the left more. So let's try to keep the numbers nice. So let's say 50 pixels. If we do 50 pixels, that's just too far, right? So, but the width matters. The width matters. So I can, then I need to push it more. I'm hoping these are nice round numbers. Yeah, this is it. This is it. So it is 50 and then 55. Okay, so there's no like one-off pixels. Great. That tells me a lot because now I know I can go by fives. Which is honestly better. I don't want to like, you know, I don't want it to be too obtuse. So this is nth child 3 and this is that way I can target each of these without having to define a class on them. I wouldn't do this in production unless I had a good reason for it. But in this case, I just want to do it to make it simpler. Also, this top value, since they're all aligned together, I can add the top value here. OPQRST. I don't remember what that was. It's 170. Okay. I can add that here. This is the parent class. And so all of them will now have that top value. So now all I have to do is deal with the left, which is really all I care about. I mean, this would be something you might use inline styles for. Okay, so for the left, let's say we go by fives, then we can do 105. Nope. 125. That looks about right. And then this one could be, and I'll do them all from the left so they're the same. Technically, I got to center it and then measure them out from the center. That might have been the better way of doing it. Too late now. So they're all evenly spaced. They're evenly spaced. So actually, I want to get this down. Oh, yeah. That looks really good. Okay, so because that's 125, then this is... What I should really do is something like this. Calc 55 pixels plus... And we could use CSS variables for this, too. So we could do something like the music note left is equal to 55 pixels. Is this how you do it, or is this how you do it? No, I don't know how to do CSS variables. Hang on, I'm gonna find out in a second here. Okay, CSS variables are referred to as custom properties. And they're like this. And so they go in a class or an identifier. I guess I can put them on the root, but I can also define these variables inside of a specific class name. And then I can give them a value, which is what I'm gonna do. And then I can use that value to calc off it using the var syntax. Okay. So instead of putting these on the root, I'm going to put them in the parent here. And so it would be something like, I would probably put the variables at the top so they're clear. And so it'd be left, something like this. And then this would be the initial left offset, right? Left offset. Or you could say offset X or X offset or something like that. And then it's equal to 55 pixels. And then here I can just use that with the var syntax. I can do left offset. I don't know if you need the dashes and stuff. It's obviously not working, or maybe it is working actually. Oh, this is wrong. So if I do this and I calc it, I should be able to calc off the var and then do, it was 125, 55, 120, 70 pixels, I think, something like that. Yeah, and so this will be 70 times 2 in the next one. So this is the left offset, and then this is the, like, there's a calculation of the left offset, which is the left multiplier. which is 70. It's not set. It's not. That's the offset. This is the left amount. This is the left offset is 70. I think so. I don't want to call it just left though, because technically it's the left offset from the left, and then the left offset is the offset between each item. It's a spacing. So left, you could say instead of left offset, left spacing, and this could just be left offset. This is the offset from the side. So you add the offset plus the spacing multiplied by your value, and then it'll push it forward. I could do that. Var. I normally wouldn't one-line this either. I'm not going to try to break it down at this point. It's not working. All right, so I removed the variables here because they're not defined. They're not saying they're noted as being defined. Now, I don't know if I need to do like something like this, like dot music note circle root. I don't even know if you could do this. Can I define the variables here so they're not global? Nope, still don't work. Don't know. I'll probably just cut this whole part out of me struggling, because if I do just root, is it going to work? No. If I put it up here. Am I doing something wrong? They put it in a root, and it just works. I thought you could scope these. Okay, so I had this spelled wrong. That's why it didn't work. I had it offset instead of offset. That's why that wasn't working. But now we can use calc, and we can multiply that by 2 and multiply that by 3. And now we're good. See? Technically, to keep this consistent, I will multiply this by 0 or by 1, and I will multiply this actually over here by 0. And it just keeps it consistent. All right, so let's create the square. This is a square with a red border, and this is a square with a red border and not border there or there. And so this is 2 squares with 2 borders. So then we're going to create, so we got our music notes, and then above those, because of Z indexing, this actually sets them back. So the higher up they are in your HTML, the further back they are in your DOM rendering. So this is going to be called music note stem, and there will be multiple stems. I'm not sure how we're going to do this, so actually I should just start with 1. So I said this is a square here, right? But it's really 2 squares. There's a square here, and there's a square here. But I could do all of this with 1 square. So we could just do this with 1 square for now. This has already been more than 10 minutes. I can totally see why those guys are rushing, but I couldn't understand what they were doing. All right, so the order of the classes don't matter here. So I'm going to organize them alphabetically. So this goes next. Now, what's in a music note stem? I said it had a border of, let's say, 8 pixels. It could be 10 pixels. Solid, and it's this red color here, this bright one. Oh, they're different. This one's different. Okay, that one will have an override. And then the size of it is going to be this distance, which is the spacing between the items, I believe. That is going to be the width. And the height is going to be something brand new that we don't have yet. So let's say 200 pixels is way too much. 120, 100, 80. And then we need to move it down. So the first one will always have the offset on it. So we'll have a left offset for these two. Oh, so I need to rename these, because now these are relative to the notes. Yeah, I'm going to rename these. I could have done something different here. What I could have done is, instead of putting the left every single time and translating it, I could do the offset on the music note circle, and then do a transform X on every single item. That's another possibility. Almost kind of want to do that now. And then the other thing that I want to... oh, this needs to be a different color anyway. This third one. Interesting. The other thing I want to do is maybe divide each one into separate groups. So like this as a music note is 1 note, and it goes in its own div. And that would make a lot more sense. But then like I'm doing it... like basically you're trying to mimic this image, right? And so I'm not trying to make a music note component and then like put it in there. But why don't we do that instead? Because if we make a music note component, then I can just position it based on the parent div as a whole. So I can make the music note, do the internal positioning, and then position the parent relative to others. That's probably how I'd build it normally. I would build like a music note like this. It would have that stem and that thing. And then if I wanted to build multiple, I could have a connector line, which is yet another component. And this one would have a half connector line because this is half of the width of this one. So I guess let's do it that way. I mean, that's not how I would want to build this, but that's probably the better way of doing it. So this first div is our first node, which is going to be a music node. This is like the parent class, right? And so this is the stem, and this is the circle. And so we're going to move it like that, and we're going to get rid of all these other circles for now, because right now we're just trying to build one node. And so this is, if I'm going to build it that way, then the stem is not going to be a square like with a border cut off or something like that. The stem is going to be something else. It's going to be just a div with a height and width that goes up. And there's going to be another bar as an optional thing. So this is like component design. I don't want global variables at that point, but I do want them to share similarities between them. The default right now is this upper red color. It doesn't have to be. You could like pass it in. Okay, let's see. So we're going to have to get rid of all this. I'm going to leave it for now. It's not hurting anything. The first child will have this offset and be in that position, but that's not what we want. So I will comment all of this out. Or just get rid of it because it's kind of taking up space. I mean, I can move it to a different window for now. CSS. There you go. And then, so now that we've slimmed this down, we have only the things we care about, but this is no longer a square, nor does it require a border. It's going to have a width, and the width is going to be 10 pixels. And so the height is there, the width is there. It's also going to be position absolute. And we're not going to have that left there yet. And the width. Okay, so the left will be consistent though. There will be a left value. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be consistent for every single one of these stems will have the same value, which is going to be an offset from the left of the parent that is containing it, most likely. And that's going to be the width of this. So the width of the circle is going to be the same as the left of the stem. And this width is wrong. So we should be able to see this element somewhere around here. I'm going to change this music note, and this music note is now going to have it's going to have the top and the width on it. The strategy I was going to use would have worked. I'm just finding that this might be a better strategy. Okay, and then these are not showing up anymore. Interesting. And this one does not have a background color. There you go. I don't know where my circle went. Oh, the width is gone. Somehow I lost the width on my circle. It should be 50 pixels. Okay. So what we did before was that we had the top whatever and the width whatever, but the position absolute, so this needs to be position relative. The reason this needs to be position relative is so it can contain the position absolute items. If you don't make this position relative or position absolute or anything like that, it will not be able to contain these items. So I don't want it relative, I want it absolute. So absolute items can contain other absolute items. So if these are both absolute and this is absolute, they'll be contained in there. If this is not absolute, it'll keep looking until it finds a container that is absolute. Or the body. Or the body of the HTML body. Okay, so now we've got our note. The note is positioned correctly. Now we need to do our offset. And our offset was 55 pixels. So this is going to be left 55 pixels. We're not using variables right now because we don't have a need for them. And then the bar is obviously too low. So the bar needs to be higher and taller. So the bottom of the bar needs to be 0, potentially. I'm going to have to probably play around with it. It is not placed correctly because it is to the left of this. It should be in our div though. Oh, I see what it is. I see what it is. I'm moving it left, but not subtracting back out the width. Okay. Calc. There are better ways of doing this. I can't think of any right now. So this is minus the width. To keep these in tune, there's a way to do it with CSS now, but I don't remember what it is. I think you could do CSS variables here. Like I could do the width here like this, and then name a variable, and then use it in both spots. I don't want to. Okay, so it is the right height, but I need it lower. And because it's bottom 0 makes me concerned about that. I don't think it's going to be the right height if I do. Yeah, see, it's too high. So I need to bring it down 20 pixels. Bring it down 20 pixels. Yeah, I don't want it there, so I want minus 20 then. There we go. We've got a music note. Now we're going to make a second music note that's 70 pixels away. So these music notes, these are the ones that need the offset. So it's going to be something like calc var. Well, I mean, right now it's not going to have it, but we're going to need to add that calculation back. And we're going to bring all these back. And get rid of that. And there we go. That's spaced correctly. And then now we can add multiple music notes, each with their own modifications. Now we have 4 music notes. We're getting very close. And we need to build a connecting bar between these two in this first one. So these two are actually part of the same. That's the interesting thing, right? So it's a music note inside a music note. So this is like this class is containing both of them. So if we loop multiple of these, we need to put a divider in between. And how would we know which one it is, right? We wouldn't know to put a music note like divider there. Connector. It's a connector, sorry. Well, because I said these have half connectors. So every note should have a half connector. But should the half connector be in the front or the back, that depends on maybe the position of the music note. Because I could do that. So like each music note, let's just say it has a connector. I mean, they're all having connectors here. They technically all don't have connectors. If you're a quarter note, you wouldn't even show the connector. But let's say you do have a connector. That connects to the stem. And like I said before, this order matters, but the order doesn't matter here because of the way I'm doing the styles. There's no square here. So z-index doesn't matter at all. The connector, though, will be attached to the stem. So we will make a connector element. And the connector is going to be the same as this. It's going to have the same width. This is where you're starting to want to use CSS variables to make this a bit easier. The problem is right now I'm using global CSS variables, and I don't want to use global ones. And so, I don't know. I mean, I could use these. I don't want to mess with it at the moment. I'll figure that out later. And so the same thing, we could do bottom, and then the bottom is going to be this height, because that'll bring it up to the top. Unless I'm doing this incorrectly, I have to do a calculation of the bottom minus the width, and then it should place it in the right spot, and then I just need to give it a background color. Where is my connector? It does not have a height. Oh, that's 10 pixels. The width is much longer. Okay, so the height is 10 pixels. The width has happened to be the distance between these two items, which I said was 70 pixels. So the width is the distance between a music note and another music note. Now, the calculation here is wrong. Well, this bottom is actually too low now. This is not position absolute. Okay, there we go. So is it was 100 minus 10. Okay. That minuses the height, but this is too high, right? It should be the height of this, whatever. Oh, because this is also propped up. See, it's bottom minus 20. So then you have to do minus 20 pixels to include the height of the music note stem. And then we need to move it over based on the width of the music note circle. So its left position needs to be moved over. So it itself has a left position. I'm a little curious why. Oh yeah, this has a left position too. It's also 50 pixels. Minus 10, which was the width, which was the thing. This one I don't know. Yeah, it's just 50 pixels left. Okay. This one you have to calculate based on the width of it. This top one you don't. So we already made one, and we just need to make 2 more. And so, like I was saying, that each one would have a connector. We could have a full connector if there are 2 of them, or we could have 2 half connectors, which would make more sense, right? And so you have to have 2. If you have 2 half connectors next to each other, then they would create a whole connector. So how about we do that? So the music connector right now, the width is 70. We should make it half of 70. So we're going to calc that. The width is divided by 2. And now we've got a half connector. So now we just need to make another half connector, right? And put it at the right spot. The problem is the width of this is starting right here. I'm pretty sure it starts right here and then goes on. For the second one, though, it needs to minus the width of the stem. Okay, so we have to add another connector here. And so if there are two connectors, the second connector then would do that. That's how you do it. So there would be another connector because there is another music note in the same container. How would we know if there's a second connector in our container here? So this actually would be a music notes class. So here we have two music note, right? And if a music note is the second music note and it has a connector, we would connect those two connectors. In fact, what we could do is we can say if a music note has a second music note, we add a connect note. This because this is 16th note, 8th note, and this is 8th note. So if it's a quarter note, it wouldn't have that. So we could say the existence of a connector depends on like if it's a quarter note up here, and then that would send this to show or hide. We don't care about that here because they're all going to show. But typically you could do something like that. I would actually write this in JavaScript in React, but that's fine. So we want to look at music note, and we want to change the connector somehow if it's the second music note. So we do this .music note connector. I think this is gonna work. Hang on, let me think. It's a child of it. It's the immediate child of it. If it's the second child, nth child 2, so if it's the second music note, then the music note connector, actually it's more like 2n, so it's every even one would have this happen to the music note connector. The left is incorrect now. It needs to be minus 50 pixels. No, I mean that's wrong. This is not targeting it. We're not getting it. Let's just put 2. Every second one should have this. Music note, nth connector, nth child. The immediate child of the music note is a music note connector, and in that we are going to move it left. I mean, this should work. I must have spelled this. I put music node connector instead of music note connector. So all of these are wrong. Wow. I didn't notice this whole time. Okay, that was the problem. So the other thing is I'm obviously doing the left incorrectly. I still need it to be 50, but I don't want it to be exactly 50. In fact, instead of changing the left, I would rather do a transform. This is where a transform would make sense. Translate x. So we're going to translate x to be 0, or no, minus 50 pixels. No, it's a calculated value. We are going backward 50 pixels, but then we have to add back the width of the stem, which is 10 pixels. And now it's connected. There you go. So this is where you want to use a transform, because you don't want to modify the left, because like if we're in this part of the class where we're modifying the value of the parent holds the actual value. We just want to translate or transform our thing over based on the rough estimate of the parent. But there are better ways of doing it. I mean, we could just, instead of transform, we could just do, left of 10 pixels or something like that. And that still works too, because that's the width of the stem. And that's only because it's already at the right spot and we just need to move it over. Okay, so let's do the other two. If we wanted to add a second one, so I want to show you this real quick. If we wanted to add a second music note with a stem. Oh, because yeah, the second music note should be right here with the stem. I'm not sure what's going on. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah. So music note now is not so it's music notes that has to have the left offset, because it is yes. Okay, well that's not going to work then with this, because this is based on each music note itself is a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that's how we're getting this movement here. Whereas the second and third would essentially be double back out, because the children of this, there are 2 children to it. I don't know if we can avoid having 2 children to this if we wanted to keep this class as it is. If we wanted to say this is a backwards connector, then we can have 2 separate ones. And I guess that's what we'll do. So instead of making it intelligent, we'll just have this be a connector, and then we'll have it have a modifier class on it, which mutates the state of the class. And we could just say backward. Or yeah, because this is a half connector. This is a backward version of a half connector. So this is maybe it's a connected connector. I don't know what you call it, transient. Like I don't know what you'd call this, but it's the connected is connected version of the connector. So if it's connected, or if it's I don't want to say is backward because that's not right. That's more of a visual thing. It's what is like it doing? It's connected. It's connected. It's connected to this one. Whereas this 8th node here is not connected because this is the 16th. Technically, yeah, you wouldn't connect those. Okay. So we just change all this to that. That's fine. And it's also now 1 level deep. So now we still have our flatness of our music notes where we can determine the positioning based off of that. And then we just need to add a connector to the next 2. So there's a half connector here. And then this one has 2 half connectors. And so I can say if there's a second connector, then drop it down. So if you have 2 connectors, so if you're in is connected, you're obviously back. But if you're not is connected, we need to say if there's a second one of you. That's child 2. So this is nth child 1. If you are the second child, it's not the nth child. You can really only have 16th notes that'll have that double line. There's not, I don't think 30, I mean, I guess there are 32nd notes. So, I mean, the way you would want to do this typically is you could add a class to it that says like, hey, this is a different connector. So we could just add the class and mutate it that way. What I could do is say this is the last child, but we can't always guarantee where it's going to be placed in the DOM here. So we would just have another one, music note connector 16th, something like this. This would be music note connector 8th, and I guess I could write that everywhere. This is actually, the connector itself is a thing, and then we would put an 8th class on every single one that's using it, and then this would be an 8th is connected. But I don't want to do it right now, so we're just going to do a 16th, which is, yep, it's a little hacky, but it'll work. So this is the 16th, and then it's going to be, what I say, it's the height that is changing now, the bottom calculation. So now we can do another transform, because this is our default. So we're just going to do another transform. Oh, last time I used a transform and then said we didn't need it. So I guess we don't need it. Like technically we just use this, and instead of 100 pixels, it's going to be 80. 70. 75. 750. No. It was 80 was not it though. 80 is not right. Oh, look how long these are. Mine are longer. The width is incorrect. I did not know that. Minus 10 pixels. Yeah, but now it doesn't fit. What if it's minus 5 pixels? Ah, I see. I had the width wrong of these. There's 70 pixels, which is the width of the circle, but they're divided by 2 and then minus 5. I wonder if this is actually minus 10, but it's because the divided by 2, it cuts it in half. So they're not really 70. So it's 70 like this. It's 70 plus 10 and then divided by 2. It's minus 10. My bad. So 10, the important piece is here, it's the width of the circle minus the width of this stem, which is why it's minus 10. Okay, so using CSS variables would probably make this a little bit easier to understand. It's a little bit convoluted now to do it, but it wasn't that difficult to place everything. Now we just need to fix the color on this last one. So we need that color, and that's a color modifier, which is another one, which is like connector, let's say like is muted. And the background for those is going to be this. So we'll add the is muted class to mutate it to a darker color. Actually, I could do it from the parent. Oh. Ah, so the background colors can be shared. So we do one of these. Watch this. This is going to be so cool. So this parent right here could have a background color on it, and all of the children can inherit the background color from the parent. So instead of them having to have the color themselves, they would just inherit it from the parent class. There we go. And now I've made it. Is 100? Is 100. Okay, great. I don't know what scoring 600 is. Oh, that's the highest you can get? Great. 200 and... Oh, I can do it in less characters. Oh, so there's like a challenge here. I don't want to do it in less. Oh, so okay, what would have done this in less is basically having the same thing, but then basically placing all these. Like, it would be a square here between that. There would be another square here for this piece, and then I would maybe have like two squares here, or like one square here, like one little square here. See, that has a top and bottom border. I could do it in less. I don't really care about that. I wanted to do it the correct way. I'm hoping this looks like the correct way. So I don't care about this number of characters. All right, when you're writing code normally, you would write it in these components. So let's fix this problem with the 16th piece here, because this is incorrect. The height calculation has to be removed from the music note connector and moved to something that makes more sense. So for an eighth note, you would have this height, and if you have a 16th, you would have both a 16th and an eighth tail on it. And so we just need to add this eighth to every single music note connector that is an eighth. And I know these classes don't look good, and this is how I would write them then if they don't look good. Boom, boom. I would actually pull this down too. When you have multiple classes, the easiest way to make them readable is to drop them down. Okay, is there a way? Thank you. No, there's like an extra space here. I can't tell. Okay, I think this looks better. So I'll just copy this whole thing and use it where I need to, and I would just hit enter there. The connector's a little weird looking. So there's my eighth. They're not gonna like this. It's just gonna make it look worse. Okay. Now that I know like character count matters, I would try to do it in less, but I really don't care. I might care, but for the video I don't care, is what I meant to say. So this is then, oh, the is connected. I don't need that for every single one. But I could do one of these guys. Yeah, it's not connected. This one's connected. No, this one's not connected. This one at the top is connected. I see. Okay, it still looks good. Submit that too, just so I have it saved. But this is really how I would do it. Now, the thing is, we use these down here. So we did use some CSS variables. Some other CSS variables we could use is the width of the note, because we use that consistently. Not that, this width right here. So that's important. In fact, that's the music note circle width. We don't need that here, do we? Yeah, it doesn't do anything. The top is okay. I guess we don't need that either. Why don't we need the top? Why don't we need that? Oh, music note is in two places. Oh. Oh, no. That's not good. I didn't even notice. Oh, it's already position absolute. It was the background color that I added to it. It's this one. By default, this is the background color. We could say is wild, you know, for these, and is muted for the others. There we go. No. This is a mutated class, so then that would go after music note. Okay. Notice how I'm ordering these. So I'm putting music note, and then every variant of it is coming next, and then the mutated version is last, because that is a completely different class. Hopefully this made sense to people. It just kind of shows how you might build something like this and think through it. Because the first thing I was building, I was like, oh yeah, there's a square here and do that. That's the short way to do it. That's the way you want to do this puzzle for the character count. If you're actually writing this, typically in your applications, you'd want something that's a little bit more robust, so you have a lot more that you can play around with in your code base. I mean, this is way more flexible. I can just make new music notes, like no big deal. So if we want to do that, why is this not tabbed over? Oh, because I made it. I see. Yeah, because I had to do this. Typically, I wouldn't have to do this, but I had to do it. There's got to be some other way to add like a margin or spacing between the notes, so that the notes themselves have a spacing, but also the notes outside of the notes have spacing. So that when I wrapped these, you know, this was a music note container parent. That could have music notes, and then the connectors can just say, oh, I'm the second connector, so I'm gonna pop that thing in there. On the third connector, I don't do that. On the fourth connector, I do that. But only if there's a third connector that is an eighth note as well. So CSS doesn't have that programmatic part, so maybe putting these classes is fine. You could do that programmatically. I think this is good. Why would I turn that off? This is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm happy with this solution. I think it looks nice. You've got something like this, which is easy to read, and then you've got a second one here, which is also easy to read. So I can just remove this. And it's very programmatic, right? You kind of like do it or not do it. You have another music note, but that is muted. It's very clear. Just looking at the styles, you can kind of see the classes. You can see what's going on. And then this one has a stem, but it also has two connectors. I really like this. Now, some things that I would change in the future had I been doing this differently was I would change these calculations here, these numbers that are important. This 10 pixels is the stem width. So this minus 20, how do we get rid of it, right? If we set the bottom here based on that offset, then and when we do these are translations. So we would translate y, and we're going to translate it up 100 pixels and then down the size of the thing. Oh, you can just do math in the translate. No. This needs to be a calc, most likely. And then this is going to be 80, right? 80 pixels here. But this is not going to be 80. It's eventually going to be 100 minus 20 pixels plus the stem size. So this 100 we haven't figured out yet. We haven't figured this piece out. Okay, so the 100 is going to be the height of the stem. So there's the stem size. It's really the stem width. Okay, and then it's the stem height, which is 100 pixels. But yeah, I think it's 100. So this is the stem width. We got to fix this. So I said stem size. It's not really the size. It's the width of the stem. I thought there was some other reason why I didn't want that, but now it makes sense. And then the stem height is the next thing we need. So we need to do one of these like that. And that's where we get this 100 from. Is it minus 100? No, it's not. It's positive. So we're just making it minus with that. I hope that works. I mean, my stems have all disappeared. I mean, my connectors have all disappeared. Okay, so I figured out what was wrong. This is the height. So music note stem height. No, it's the width. That's why I said size before. Because the stem width, it is stem size. Like, this is the stem height, but this is really the stem size. Because the connector is also part of the stem. I'll just leave it as stem width. Here's the height of the connector. It just doesn't make sense, though. And now I'm having problems with this not being placed correctly. So if I multiply this by minus 1, it goes back the other way. I mean, that's one way to do it. Don't forget my plus 20. It's minus 20 now. Times minus 1. And then it's back. So here's another way to do it. So the way you would drop these, and then this makes it just slightly easier to read, is something like this. It's just enough easier to read that I like it. I'd be like this solution to making these music notes, and I cleaned it up and I added all of these variables everywhere so that you can see how different things are related. The only one with magic number is the 16th here, and I could even make this a variable if I wanted to. And I have to do this times minus 1 because I'm doing a transform. Whereas I had a bottom on every single one. Now I have the bottom here on this spot, and then because I have the bottom on the parent, then I can just translate based on if it's an 8th or 16th. And I don't have to modify the parent at all. I don't even have to know where the parent's position is. So that's really nice. I definitely am happy or satisfied, at least. I'm definitely satisfied with this solution. I think it's pretty good. It makes sense. It's reusable. It's componentizable. And it accomplishes the task. Now, obviously the character count has grown, but only because they don't like me hitting the enter key. And then this is using spaces instead of tabs. If we use tabs, this would have a significantly smaller character count. But when you hit tab in here, it tabs by 4, and it just makes it harder to read. So if you wanted to lower the character, and it lowers it by 4. If you wanted to make this smaller in terms of character count, I would definitely remove the spaces and use tabs. I don't know why you would. So if you like really care about the site, then that would be what matters. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. I would just enjoy it, enjoy like trying to make a good solution to it rather than a small solution to it. So there's no way for them to grade you on that, but they can grade you on the character count, which just means you're going to come up with worse solutions. Control-Shift-E. I wonder, that doesn't do anything for me? You can see my solutions, they just keep getting worse and worse. That's funny. Nope. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this and you learned a little bit about CSS. And if you want me to do more of these videos, just tell me in the comments and I'll do more videos where I go to the CSS battle and show you how to actually write the CSS in a way that you would do it from a production standpoint and not the way you would do it where you're just trying to be timed in 10 minutes and accomplish it. Because obviously this took me a lot longer than 10 minutes. All right, thank you. Goodbye.